Have you ever been caught off guard on the trail, whether it's by gear that won't cooperate or the sun setting faster than you expected? Today I am sharing a few little hiking hacks that'll keep you prepared and ahead of the game no matter what the trail throws at you. If you're ready to hike smarter and a bit more comfortably, then stick around. Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Mauser and I've been hiking for over 30 years, both as a guide and for a bit of fun. And in that time, I've picked up plenty of tips and tricks that can make a world of difference when you're out on a walk. From keeping your gear dry to making sure that your boots don't fail you, or your shoes, they can fail too. These little hacks will have you covered. Let's dive straight in. Let's go. Are you tired of your shoelaces or your boot laces constantly coming undone? Or maybe your feet are slipping a bit in your shoes and you're getting blisters? The surgeon's knot is a simple but effective way to keep your feet in place inside your shoes.
That's interesting.
And I find it particularly useful for longer hikes where I'm walking long miles, long kilometers in a day, and I don't want my boot to be slipping and I don't want to be constantly tightening up my boots. Now, I used to suffer a lot with my foot slipping in my boots, my shoelaces coming undone underneath my gaiters, that sort of thing. But since I've started using this, it's just been a game changer for me. Now, there are several different versions. If you're looking online, there are a lot of different versions of the surgeon knot. There is also one called the Berluti Knot combined with a surgeon's knot. Now, I don't know which one is exactly the correct one. The one I use, the one I will show you, is the one that I use, that I also found on YouTube. I'll also link below to a couple of videos that explain the different knots, but we'll also just quickly clip over to Mauser now, doing up his boots and showing you how it's done. Thanks, Mauser. Well, yeah, this is the surgeon's knot, Berluti knot that I have been using. There are a few different combinations that you can use, but we're going to do it today with my boots because that's what I had handy. And we're going to show you a couple of different steps that I use. So I've got my boots on, the laces are undone, and I'm just going to tie them like I normally would to these first eyelets on the side of the boot there, like that. Now, you can just go all the way up till you get to the top to tie the shoelace, but what I am tending to do, and this will lock in your ankle a bit as well if you're wanting to prevent blisters more, and a lot of people do the surgeon's knot at this point. So what they'll do first is go to the eyelets like this, and you just go like you're going to tie your shoelace. You go around half twist like that, that's one, and then you go again, and then you tighten that off, and that just prevents the knot slipping further on. Then you can go up to the next toggle, and we're going to go again and do the same thing, and this is just tightening the boot as you go. You don't have to do this bit, but I do prefer it just because it locks in the boot. Now, these lower boots, you do need to go around that bit. I'm not going to do that here for this example. So you can keep going all the way up to the top like that. We get to the last one and we do it again, half loop. Now, you would do it here at the top regardless if you've done it down there or not. This, you do it here all the time. Do the two half loops like that, tighten that off. And that generally, with most laces, that shouldn't really slip much. These ones still does a bit. But then you do the two bunny ears, like so. And then what you do, you've got your two bunny ears. This is one way of doing it. I will leave a link to another way of doing this below with the diagram. But this is how I always tie my shoelaces anyway. I get laughed at by my wife for this, but this is the way I tie them. So you get those bunny ears across like that. Then you take both that and that end of that other bunny ear that's going through, and you bring the whole lot around like that. And then you do the same on this side with the other lace and bit, so you end up with like that double knot, and then you tighten it with the bunny ears. You can let go of those strings, you just tighten with the bunny ears, and you can see there, if I just adjust that a little bit, you can see there that knot is quite nice and very tight and done. You could do it. So what you end up here with is a very nice looking knot. I will flash a close-up on the screen of that, and it's nice and tight. That's not going anywhere, and you can just, to undo it, you can just do that and it undoes. Then you can undo it like that. If you tighten them off enough, it's just not going anywhere. Like, it's really tight, and you've got to really give it quite a bit of yank to undo it. If you really wanted to, you could do another knot off the top there, but then they won't undo. So but I'd leave it like that. I find that is really quite effective. I've been using this with my sneakers lately, and undone. Make it really easy to be undone at the end of the day, as opposed to doing double knots. And that is how you do your surgeon's knot with a Berluti. Bit of a twist. So there you go. Back to you, Mauser. Thanks for that, Mauser. So I have found that lace really good lately. I've been using it for a couple of months. I'm even just using it now in my trail runners when I'm walking, when I'm doing that sort of thing. I just do a basic, like, first couple of loops, the surgeon's knot, and my boots stay nice and tight and don't slip at all, and my laces do not come undone. So that is a great little tip. Give it a try. I recommend practicing it a bit. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, it is a great little knot to tie with your shoes. Next tip, to maybe make your next hike a bit easier, a bit more user-friendly. That is zip ties for quick repairs. So what I've found recently is that zip ties can be one of the most versatile little bits, gear, little tools in your kit. These little guys are lightweight but incredibly strong, and they are perfect for quick gear repairs. And we found this out earlier this year on a big 8 or 9 day walk where one of my good mates, his pit zip in his Gore-Tex raincoat, well, it came to bits. It was gaping open. He couldn't zip it up. The zips were broken. We were out on day 3 of an 8 or 9 day trip in very rainy conditions, and we were wondering, sitting around, how we're going to repair this jacket. It was cold, it was wet, and he really wanted to get that done up as much as he could. Regular things like duct tape, that sort of thing, weren't going to cut the mustard. We had a very basic sewing kit, but that's not enough really to fix the issue. But then my good mate Walzer, who you've seen in other videos, he came to the rescue with some zip ties that he'd brought. And we were able to do up that big gaping hole in the jacket with a bunch of zip ties. We did have to actually cut tiny little holes into the jacket to make it work, but the jacket was pretty much gone anyway. But it lasted the trip out very well because we had those zip ties on hand. And you don't need to carry many of them. Maybe 6 to 10 zip ties is all you need. But I can just think of so many uses of where I might use these in the future. I'm going to keep them in my kit all the time now. I can think they would be especially helpful in things like pack repairs. I have seen over the years pack shoulder straps and things break, and we've cobbled together very basic repairs, but I think a zip tie will be very helpful in those instances in the future. And while I realise that we're not really going to use them that often, when we do need them, they're going to be extremely handy. So that is a new tip from me, one that I have found particularly useful already. Next tip, just to make your next trip a bit easier, and that is to line your pack with a pack liner or a trash compactor bag, a rubbish bag, some form of waterproof impermeability. And like I've said before, when you're out on the track, staying dry is crucial, and keeping your gear dry is extremely important. Now, back in the early days when I was starting out hiking, I just had a big thick plastic bag that lined my pack for me, and I used that same plastic bag for quite a few years. I would always line my pack with that plastic bag. Then all my gear would go in there. I would often put some gear like my sleeping bag in another bag to keep it super dry, but it's just the most basic tip, and it's one that I just preach all the time. Even if you're using a pack cover, I recommend using a pack liner, a plastic bag, a waterproof bag of some sort to line your pack with, and it's going to make your trip a whole lot easier, especially on those really rainy trips. It's just going to help prevent stuff from getting wet. And it certainly doesn't need to be anything fancy. Like I said, a thick plastic bag is perfect. You can buy them at most outdoor stores as well as online. They've even got Dyneema ones these days as well. So keep that in mind. Use a pack liner. Next tip, always be aware of how much sunlight you have left. Now, this may seem obvious to you, but sometimes, especially on big trips, one of the biggest challenges on a big day can be managing your time. So it is really good to have an idea of how much sunlight you're going to have left and how much daylight in general you're going to have throughout the day. It's something we often check for big trips. The sunrise times and the sunset times, we'll be checking that stuff out before we go, so we've got a good idea of how many hours we can spend on the trail each day. It's also really good when you just want to get to camp a bit earlier and make a nice campsite and watch the sunset while you eat your dinner or something. It's good to know the sort of sunset time so you can prepare to have a restful, pleasant evening. So as a general rule of thumb, we try and plan our campsites so we're going to get there, so we've still got enough sunlight to get set up, get ready for dinner, that sort of thing. And we'll sort of just be keeping that in the back of our minds. On a big day, we'll have in the back of our minds how much sort of time we can spend at breaks, how much further we've got to go, so we can sort of coincide it with getting to camp in time before the sun sets. Now, this doesn't always go to plan. Sometimes there are evenings where we've run late, where we've come into camp late with head torches on, and that may happen sometimes, but ideally try and get into camp before sunset. It is really nice being at camp watching the sunset. Next little tip on today's little hiking tip list is to waterproof your jacket. Now, as I said before, staying dry on the trail is your key to staying comfortable. Now, while it is almost impossible, especially here in Tasmania when it's raining constantly, to stay completely dry, there are a few ways that you can minimize the impact of the rain on you. And one of my favorites is to waterproof my Gore-Tex, my waterproof jacket. And I do definitely notice the effect when I do waterproof my jacket. I tend to do mine once or twice a year now. It's getting a bit older, my raincoat, my Arc'teryx Beta AR jacket, but it certainly does make a difference. I went into how to waterproof your jacket on another video. I will leave a link for that below. And it's a simple process to do. You just go and get some of this product, you use it on your jacket, go through a few other steps, and then when you head out on the trail, you will notice the water beating off your raincoat. So check out that other video. It'll be up here as well as in the description down below. And another thing you could do if you want to get some tips on how to do this sort of thing is to sign up to my newsletter. It comes out every week. You can sign up down below as well as by using the QR code just here somewhere. And that newsletter comes out every Tuesday. Tips, tricks, and just all bits and pieces that I find interesting in the world. So check that out. But we move on to the next tip, and that is to pre-measure your meals and your food into Ziploc bags. So if you want to save time and space when you're heading out on a big trip, pre-measuring meals into Ziploc bags really does save a lot of space and a bit of weight when you're heading out on a long trip. You are only carrying exactly what you need because you've pre-weighed and predetermined everything before you head out, and it makes meal prep on the trail an absolute breeze. And then what I like to do is to organise my food either by meals, so I'll have all my breakfast together, my dinners together, or I'll even sometimes put it all into days, so I'll have day 1, day 2, day 3, and it just takes up no space in my pack then. It really packs down quite compact, which is the main thing I like about pre-packing my meals, and I'm not having to cart all that immense amount of waste and rubbish out on the trail with me that a lot of the meals and stuff come in. Now with my heated meals, I will tend to reconstitute them in my Ziploc bags. I use the Ziploc brand of bags. Some people don't like to do that because of potential microplastic contamination. Totally understand that. So what you can do there is just take one of the foil pouches that the meal would have come in, and you rinse that out after each meal and reuse that foil pouch. You can use a lightweight titanium pot or something to reconstitute in. I've seen all these done on the trail, but just by packaging your meals down into those smaller snap-lock bags, the Ziploc bags, it saves so much room in your pack, especially when you're heading out for 9 to 10 days. And I calculated that on my last 9-day trip, it saved me, it was close to 1 kilo in packaging. Now things like snack bars, little snacks, things like that, I will keep in there, just in their wrapper, but it's the main meals that I'm talking about here. It is things like breakfast, dinner, some lunches, anything that's dehydrated or freeze-dried, I am repacking into smaller bags. And I'll also allocate my little bag of trail mix each day as well. We call it scroggin here in Australia, but trail mix, that goes into its own little bag for each day as well. And then I find that I used to carry 3 sort of stuff sacks full of food for a 9 to 10 day trip. Now I can get away with sort of 2. So it does make a bit of a saving to space in your pack, which is nice. Next tip is to weigh your gear. Like every piece of gear you are taking or that you may take on a walk, and to put it into a spreadsheet or an app. Now this may seem obvious to a lot of you experienced hikers out there, but for those that are new to the game, this really is a game changer. And if you ever wondered why your pack is feeling heavier than it should, then this can really help you eliminate some of those unnecessary things that you've taken out in the trail. This not only identifies areas where you can save weight, but it also ensures that you're not carrying anything unnecessary. And because with a lot of these apps these days and the spreadsheet that I used to use, you can track what you've used on past trips. Over time, you'll find that you can fine-tune your gear list to be as efficient as possible. And just the process of putting stuff into a spreadsheet or dragging it across from the app, something like Lighter Pack or Pack Wizard, dragging the item into your virtual pack on the app or the website, you are thinking about each item you are putting in there as you do it, as opposed to just getting a big pile of gear and throwing it all in your pack. Now, you do think about it there as well, but I just find the process of doing an app, I am really analysing what I'm packing as I go. Once you get a bit of gear, you can play around with combinations of the types of gear you want to take and come up with the best sort of system that works for you. Now, my next tip for those who may not have been hiking as much or are not getting out the door as much as they'd like to, that is to wear and test your boots before your hike. And again, this is probably obvious to a lot of people, but your boots can make or break your hike. So if you haven't worn them for a while, and if they're new, you need to try them out before you head out on the walk. Even with older boots that you've been wearing for a couple of years, if you haven't worn them for 6 months, 8 months or more, wear them around before you go. And you should probably be wearing them sort of once every 2 to 3 months anyway, to prevent a thing called hydrolysis of the sole of the shoe or the boot. That's where it goes sort of hard and slippery because it's drying out and it's not being worn regularly. I just find I will get my solid hiking boots that I wear from all my off-track stuff. I will get them out. I try to wear them around at least once a month, every 6 to 8 weeks, just so these soles, paid a lot for these boots. I don't want them to get wrecked on me, so I just make sure the soles are staying, flexible and strong, and wearing them is the best way to do that. And if you're trying out new boots, I always recommend that you take them home from the store with you and wear them around inside your house for a while before you wear them outside just to make sure they are the right fit. I know that most stores here in Tasmania and Australia will let you take your boots home, and as long as you only wear them around in the house, they will let you return them for a different size if they're not fitting so good. Once you are sure that they're the right fit, then start wearing them out on short walks. I walk around the city here in Tasmania in my boots fairly often. I probably look a bit funny sometimes wearing them with my big backpack when I'm training, but it does make a big difference, especially if you have suffered from blisters in the past. Just wearing your boots regularly will keep them well worn. And the absolute last thing you want to discover when you're day 1 or 2 into a long hike is that your boots aren't fitting well and you're starting to get blisters. So always give them a test run in the lead up to a walk. And my final tip today, which is one of my favorites, is to pack things like snacks and sunscreen in the pockets on your pack or in your shoulder pockets for walk and apply or walk and consume. And this is something that I never used to do. I never used to carry snacks on my person, like in the hip belt pockets or in the shoulder pockets. I used to always have to stop, get a snack out of my pack and take a break, a couple of times an hour to get a snack out. What I do now, I generally pack anywhere from 4 to 6 snack bars or trail mix in the hip belts of my pack. That way, while I'm walking along, I can pull one out when I'm starting to get a bit peckish, a bit hungry, and I can snack pretty regularly while I'm walking. Now, when my buddies and I are walking, we tend to walk for at least an hour at a time, if not more, and just being able to snack a couple of times an hour is fantastic. I'm not stopping and getting cold. I'm walking along. I'm snacking while I'm walking along. And if it's a nice, hot, sunny day, then I'll just stop for a couple of minutes with my pack still on, and I'll apply some sunscreen or some lip balm, keep that sort of stuff in my pockets. And it's just a thing that I never used to do, and I really like it. I do. I love it. But do you have a hack of your own that you want to share? Leave it in the comments below. Lots of people are commenting. It's fantastic. We're building a little community here. I'd love to hear the hacks that you use on the trail, because there's millions of them. There's literally millions. And if you want to learn a few more little hacks that I love, check out this video where I go through a few more.